My name is Claire. Not Chef Claire, not entrepreneur Claire, just Claire. At least that's how my family saw me. The quiet one, the soft-spoken one, the sweet one, like I was some kind of background character in their loud, chaotic lives. And for a long time, I played that role like a professional understudy. But I wasn't always this invisible. Growing up, I loved baking. While my siblings were off chasing degrees, careers, and chaos, I was in the kitchen, perfecting the perfect croissant. Not that anyone cared. My mom would pat my head and say, "That's cute, honey," while simultaneously bragging about my brother's 4th promotion in 5 years. So when I finally announced, at Sunday dinner no less, that I was opening a bakery, the room went dead silent, and then they laughed, full-on, gut-busting laughter. My brother Josh nearly choked on his steak. My sister Emily wiped tears from her eyes. Even my father, usually the stoic type, smirked and said, "Well, I suppose someone has to keep the ovens warm." My mother looked at me with that tight-lipped smile she saves for when I do something embarrassing in public. "Sweetheart, you know how hard it is to run a business, right? You can barely manage a group chat. The thing is, I wasn't looking for approval. I wasn't even looking for support. I just thought, maybe they'd show a flicker of interest in something that made me feel alive. But instead, I got mockery served with mashed potatoes and a side of smug. So I left early. Not that anyone noticed. What they didn't know was that I'd been planning this for 2 years. I'd taken business courses online. I'd interned at a bakery across town under a pseudonym. I'd saved every penny from my dull accounting job. A job, by the way, none of them knew I even had. I found a little space downtown. It was old. The kind of place with chipped paint and creaky floors. But it had character and potential. It also sat directly across the street from the building my parents owned. The same building they rented out to Josh's law office and Emily's overpriced boutique. That detail made me smile. For months, I worked in silence. No grand announcements, no social media updates. I painted the walls myself, installed the shelves, tested recipes late into the night. It was exhausting, beautiful work. Work that made me forget the way my name always came last in family conversations. Then, 2 weeks before opening, I got a call. It was Emily. "Hey, Claire," she said, her voice dripping with condescension. "Mom said you were opening a bakery? Like a real one? Where people pay actual money. I just said yes." She laughed. Again. But this time I didn't flinch. Let them laugh. They had no idea what was coming. And soon, they'd be paying rent to me. Opening day arrived with the kind of quiet tension you feel just before a storm. The sign above the door read, "Claire's Crumbs." Simple, elegant, and completely mine. The front windows were polished to a sparkle. The smell of cinnamon, warm butter, and vanilla wafted through the air like a secret. People walking by actually stopped, stared, smiled. Some even came in, and not a single member of my family was invited. Not out of spite. Well, okay, maybe a little out of spite, but mostly because I didn't need them there. I didn't need their fake smiles or empty compliments. I had something better. I had customers. By noon, the line wrapped around the block. A food blogger I'd quietly invited posted about my croissant donut hybrids, which I called crumbies, and within hours, we were sold out. Every last pastry. People were begging me to reserve their orders for the next day. Someone even tried to bribe me with concert tickets. I went home that night smelling like sugar and glory. The next morning, I got a text from my dad. "Saw a line outside your place. You serving free samples or something?" I didn't reply. 3 days in, the bakery was the talk of the town. I kept prices humble, but my quality ruthless. No shortcuts, no compromises. Reviews poured in. Local news reached out. It was everything I'd imagined, and then some. Then, right on cue, my family started sniffing around. Emily showed up first, pretending to be just passing by. She walked in wearing sunglasses and that designer trench coat she thinks screams, "Fashion. Icon." She looked around like she was expecting to see a folding table and some sad muffins, but her expression changed the moment she saw the elegant display cases, the brass accents, the soft classical music playing in the background. Her eyes landed on a couple of local influencers snapping selfies near the pastry wall. "Claire," she said, blinking, "this is actually kind of nice." "Thanks," I said, dusting flour off my hands. "We're fully booked until next week, but I can squeeze you in for a coffee and a crumbie if you're willing to wait 20 minutes. Her face twitched. She declined, of course. Josh came next. He swaggered in like a man entering a courtroom, scanning every corner like he was evaluating my assets. Which, ironically, he was. "So," he said, leaning on the counter, "how much are you pulling in per day?" "Enough," I said with a smile. "Want to rent the kitchen for your firm's next holiday party?" He snorted, but I saw the flicker behind his eyes. They were starting to get it. I wasn't just Claire anymore. I was Claire, the business owner. Claire, the woman with a 3-month wait list and a line around the block. Claire, who kept a little secret tucked in her back pocket. Because while they were busy laughing at my dream, I was busy buying the building they operated out of and closing on it in 3 weeks. 3 weeks passed faster than a rising souffle. I signed the final papers on a Thursday morning, right there in the cozy back office of my bakery, sipping a lavender latte and nibbling on a lemon tart. The lawyer slid the deed across the table, and just like that, I owned the building my parents had held for 30 years. The same building they rented to Josh and Emily for next to nothing. It hadn't even been listed, but money talks, and my savings, along with a nice loan backed by the bakery's explosive success, did all the shouting. The property manager, George, was more than happy to work with me. He'd dealt with my family for years. Apparently, they weren't exactly charming tenants. Late payments, unreasonable demands. Complaints about poor foot traffic, even though they were right downtown. So when I asked him to send the new lease agreements, George grinned and said, "With pleasure. The new terms? Market value. No discounts. No sibling favors. No more rent paid in exposure or holiday baskets." When the emails went out, I waited. Emily called first. "Claire," she snapped, not even bothering with pleasantries. "Did you buy this building?" "I did. This rent is outrageous. My boutique can't survive this kind of increase." "Then you might want to consider downsizing," I said sweetly. "Maybe sell some of those neon fur boots that have been sitting in your window since April." She gasped. "You're doing this on purpose." "Absolutely," I said, with the biggest smile she couldn't see. "But also, it's just business." Josh showed up in person. Classic Josh. He stormed into the bakery during peak hours, demanding I rethink the numbers, because law firms don't thrive on extortion. I offered him a crumbie and told him to take a seat like everyone else. He didn't. Instead, he growled something about legal action. I told him I looked forward to it, especially since he'd signed a month-to-month lease and had zero leverage. By the following Monday, word had spread. My parents called a family meeting. I didn't go. I was busy restocking eclairs. Eventually, they came to me, at the bakery. Mom wore that same tight-lipped smile. Dad stood stiffly beside her. Emily and Josh lingered behind like sulking teenagers. "Claire," my mom said, "isn't there a way we can work this out? We're family, after all. Funny how family only matters when they need something." I looked at her, looked at all of them. And for the first time in my life, I didn't shrink. "No," I said. "But I hear there's an open spot across town. Cheap rent. Great view of a dumpster." Then I turned back to my work. That day, I sold out in 2 hours. And when I stepped outside to lock up, I saw Emily pacing on her phone and Josh shouting into his car's Bluetooth. It was glorious, because they laughed when I said I was opening a bakery, but now they pay the price. Literally.